So I don't know what's going on. I don't feel particularly great, but I don't know why. So I don't know what's going on. I feel like I might be allergic to something I'm eating, but I don't know what it is. It seems like it's something different every time, so it might be something in my environment. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out if we have some severe allergic reaction to something in the next month and a half or so. Otherwise, I'll probably have to set up an appointment with a doctor and go through the frickin' fight to figure that one out. It'll be what it'll be, I guess. Maybe I got a cold. I don't know. Who knows? He seems to be doing all right. The thing that's a little difficult sometimes is they're not well informed about what anything means. So my landlord's situation is he seems to be doing a little bit better health-wise. I don't know how good he's doing because I don't think he knows how good he's doing. He has kidney issues, and so like, what did they tell him, and what does he understand them telling him? I don't know. Like, how far into kidney failure is he? Does he understand that? I don't think he does. So I don't know what the situation is with that, but he seems to be at least getting better from where he's been. So there's that question. And his wife has had some symptoms for the last week. Stop tipping it. For the last week, and so she's been feeling under the weather lately. And she sent me a message this afternoon saying, I went to get antibodies at Concord Hospital. I don't think that's what happened. Maybe it is. I don't know. But my understanding is you don't just go to the local hospital and get an antibody shot. You might get antibiotics. Not the same thing. So I don't know what's going on anymore. I think the information I'm getting from anybody on that, like, she wasn't in the hospital, she wasn't having severe symptoms, and she didn't need a respirator. So I don't think that anybody was just handing out the antibodies. And I would almost promise you that they don't have the insurance coverage for that kind of thing. I don't know, maybe. I'd be curious to find out. But it just seems improbable. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It didn't seem like it was a likely scenario to me. And so maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But it is whatever it is. And in the meantime, that's the scenario here. My friend in another state who's also seems to have it, her fever finally broke. So she seems to be making it through all right. And I've still got to, it's one of those things where I've talked about just quitting this job or finding another one. And it's never really been more apparent to me that after several days of dealing with people around me with a serious illness, that the idea of switching back to just the ordinary mundane process of going through this stuff on the daily basis with my job, I don't want to go back. Like, I don't want to go back and deal with this crap. But I've spent a good portion of my day digging up positions, advertised positions for jobs in a similar vein. And I was like, part of that was also the experience of going through the job listings and seeing some listings for jobs that are very similar to what I'm currently doing. And I go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. I kind of want to find something else. I don't want to have to, like, I don't want any reminders of all the crap I put up with for the last year of this pandemic being an essential worker. Put me in a back room stocking flat packed furniture for some office supply store. I would rather do that. So, I mean, I don't mean to say that, I've not benefited from having the job. It's miserable. It's hostile. It's unsafe. Like, no matter what we do, like, I got the pandemic in the early days. I got COVID in the early days from working there. There's nowhere else I could have ever gotten it. Nobody else had it around me, and I never went anywhere but work and back to bed. And so, like, I got it from them. And, despite every effort to try to make things better in that work environment, in December, I ended up getting a massive cold. Like, we're all wearing masks. We're washing our hands regularly. We're using a hand sanitizer. We spray down the stations with a antibiotic spray. Like, we have a plastic barrier between us and customers. There's a there's a policy posted on the door that you must wear a mask to come in. Now, I mean, is half of what most people wear actually a mask? No, not really. You got people just, if people could wear a nylon stocking over their head, they'd do that instead, and there's no way that's effective. So there are people just doing things that are not effective approaches to dealing with protecting in a pandemic. And half of them are pulling their masks down to eat food while they're carrying their stuff in a basket and then handle it onto the belt. So it's like, it doesn't do any good. Like, the way people are behaving, it's just bound to be, an environment where you're going to always catch something every season. And so I've had my COVID already. I had a mega cold in the middle of when we were supposed to be protected from being infected by other people. So that's not helpful. And at this point, I could be infected again, I'm sure, and not know it and just be a silent carrier. So I'm a risk to everybody in my family at this point. If I go visit my mother for Mother's Day or whatever, or her birthday, how much of a risk am I to her? Even if I've already had it and she gets her shots, she's not fully protected. There's a good chance she'll be protected some degree to it, but it's an unknown factor. And the people have become hostile and crabby in the work environment, the customers and the employees. And the company has treated the employees badly enough that everybody's talking about just walking out. And so it's just like, I don't want to do it anymore. And the prospect of having done this as long as I've done it, this past couple years, has sort of given me sort of like a reactionary avoidance. There's looking at jobs, as soon as I see one that starts to sound just like what I'm doing, the first reaction out of my mind is, well, oh, no, I don't want to do this job. Like, I would actually rather work a garbage truck or even pumping septic tanks. I would rather do that than deal with what I've been dealing with again. But by the same token, I also know that there is, and part of the reason I take jobs like I've taken are I know that if I don't have a job where I have to go out into the public and interact on a regular basis, I will become a shut-in hermit and feed off of my own mental issues, I guess is the best way I can phrase it. I will start to have panic attacks and um, anxiety issues, and then it would become harder for me to do simple, ordinary, everyday things, and I will make myself physically sick unintentionally with all the stress and problems I cause myself. And when I get sick from those anxiety attacks and whatnot, I will panic and make poor choices about how to try to mediate them. And I will just spiral out of control until I do some serious stuff to myself, like just worry about whether or not I have an allergic reaction to a food that I've been eating, and so just not eat for days. And so it's just, there's a part of me is like, I know I benefit from interacting with the public on a certain level, like making myself do it, but I kind of just don't want to go anywhere for a little while. Because I can feel both ends of that happening right now. Like, I felt for a long time, I felt for months, probably since last summer, that I just wanted to blockade myself into a room and not deal with people for 2 to 3 months. I would love to do that. But I also know that given all the things going on in my life right now, like the stress of my landlord and my friend being sick and other things going on, that if I were to be left alone for a month or two, I might just go bonkers. And it's not because I need other people to be around, it's because I'll be around myself too much. Because, like, right now, like, the tip of my tongue feels like I had something too hot, but I didn't. I feel like I've got a little bit of an ear infection going on again, but I haven't had a cold. And um, I just had that sneeze happen, which is because there's some like rawness feeling in my nose. Like, my mind is playing already with the idea of like, okay, so what did we eat differently today than we did yesterday? Because yesterday I didn't have these symptoms. What did we do differently today? And how long has it been since I eaten? And how long does it usually take for a symptom for an allergic reaction to a food item? And like, that's what my brain's doing right now. It's taking these minor symptoms, worrying about them, and then spinning them through my encyclopedia brain full of data and start. It's sort of like if you've ever had like an odd ache or pain and you go look up on the internet what that ache or pain could be, and an hour and a half later you're convinced you've got colon cancer, kind of, or leukemia or something like that. And like, I don't need the internet to do half of that because my brain will do it if I just give it the chance. Like, it's entirely possible that what's going on right now is I've developed a dust allergy or something like that, and the heating system kicking on the colder nights that we've had lately is blowing more dust out of the air ducts, and maybe I'm just having a dust allergy symptom, and it's not food related at all. Who knows? It's also possible that other conditions or healthcare concerns that I've had in the past are reemerging. Don't know. And if left alone to those thoughts as the only thing to entertain my brain for the course of the day when I'm trying to do other things, it will go crazy. I will go crazy. So I need something to do to distract myself and to escape an environment that I feel like I'm not comfortable in right now. Like right now, I feel like I could cough if I could just get dressed, put on a mask, and go to work tomorrow. I will be busy doing the stuff I need to do at work, and this won't be on my mind, and my body won't be placebo symptoming myself. And I don't, it's like how much of that is just my mind being overactive on its anxieties and concerns. I mean, it's interesting to note that, this wasn't like an obvious problem or a concern I had a week and a half ago. But a week and a half ago, my landlord didn't have potential kidney failure resulting from a pandemic virus that he caught, and he's carrying around with him down there, infecting his wife and also potentially threatening my living space and my living environment with both infection and the potential of loss of those living spaces and having to move again. Like all of that has happened in the last week and a half. What are the chances that those have more to do with what's going on than something else more, immediately threatening to me? So what are the odds that my brain is playing that game with me and taking the stress and anxiety and turning it into a symptom that heightens my stress and anxiety and therefore self-feeds itself? That's entirely probable. And, that's one of those things where I'm taking my supplements to replace some vitamins I'm low on, that when you're low on those vitamins, they can lead to panic attacks and anxiety attacks. So is that part of it? We'll find out. But I do know, in my head at least, the odds that I will die before next week are pretty small. So suck it up and just deal with it, I guess, is what I need to tell myself. But in the same space, there's that space in my environment to play in my own head with those. I shouldn't call it play because there's no play about it. There's that space in my head that permits that sort of thing to take off and cycle through in my brain. And I don't know if that's always been the case. I think it's something that, recent stresses have heightened. The stress of the work environment, the stress of the global pandemic, the stress of not being able to do some of the things that I need to do for my family and my friends. And then a stress of people actually being sick around me and the threat to my friends and my living situation, I think are just sort of like they build to a point. And once you have that sort of fertile environment, it's easier to hit that straw that breaks the camel's back, I guess, is where that goes. And there's value in having somewhere else to be with other people, doing other things, at least when I'm in the midst of that sort of chaos storm that seems to be going on right now. I guess we'll find out where things are in a week or so. Yeah, I don't I don't know why, other than just muscling through for so long at a job that was clearly as stressful as it was, what wound me so tight lately. Because the last week, landlord getting COVID and it causing kidney problems. That's a reasonable amount of stress to come in at a certain point. But my friend being sick, that's a little bit of stress. But I feel like I was primed for that to be worse than it actually is, because it's just one of those. I'm not sure what it is. Like, has a job just wrecked me over the last year? I don't know. Because when I started the job, I went through a holiday season, and yeah, it was a bit of a mess. It could have been better, but I didn't think it was all that bad. I felt like around February, it just really became clear to me that this place is just a mess and it'll never be better. And then within a month or two of that, we started to have to really worry about the pandemic hitting, and then the crazy behavior of all the people in the public around that time. It was just sort of kind of like, I don't know what to make of any of that. I don't know how much to put on B12 deficiency and folate deficiency on my part, which can lead to panic attacks. I don't know how much to put on job stress. I don't know how much to put on legitimate chronic health conditions that I have to deal with. Like, how much is there and how much is, invented? Because, I mean, I just had a really good, what was it? Like, I had a really good bunch of time with that February project that we did. That was really rewarding. And I had doing those things and achieving that by the end of the month was a really profoundly good feeling. It would be ranked easily on my list of highs I've had over the last 5 years. But the thing that really keeps coming back to my mind is for a little bit before that, the stress was a lot. And since then, it's also been a lot. But I can't really feel like during that time, if any of the other concerns that, my brain latches onto and plays with gets caught in those spirals, I can't say during that couple of days whether or not I had those same problems. It's hard to say. I don't know. In the meantime, this part of the reason why I'm chatting about this so much tonight was I haven't done much else other than look for another job. I feel like if I can just move where I'm working, the prospects of things going forward could be better. I don't know. I genuinely I don't know. Maybe I just need to go live somewhere else. Maybe I just need a different job and a different place to live. I don't know. But I can't trust my instinct. My instinct right now is just to withdraw from everybody else in the world. I'd still do videos just because it's reasonably easy to just hop on and put a video on. Occasionally chat with the chat on the side. But for the most part, it's just me mentally talking about the things going on, the weird experiments that I want to try to do, the projects that I want to focus on, the things I'd rather be doing with my time than the stupid job that I hate, that I barely get paid any money for, and that I don't feel like I'm even remotely respected. And it's just sort of I'd like to think that I could do that, but there's also that question in my mind about whether or not if I went back and found a different job, if I ended up at like a one of the ones I looked at earlier was a Dave and Buster's, which is, I guess, like a Chuck E. Cheese for adults or something like that. And they were looking for hiring people. Like, would I be happier in that job? I don't know. There's just a part of me at this point where I'm like, I don't want to work a job. I don't like, can I have a couple months off where I'm not working a job and I just have the chance to be me and recenter my thinking about who I am and where I want to go and what I want to do? Like, is that a thing I can do? I don't know. I mean, I feel like if it comes to it, like, I've had a little bit of like a break for a couple of days from work. Well, and that's the thing is like, the idea that, with all the things that I do and my talents and whatnot, um, like there, it should be reasonably possible for me to make a living off of some of that. And that was part of the idea of doing some of this stuff on the Opportunity Forge channel. And I'll get there, but it's both anxiety producing and exciting to think about the possibility of really going all in on something like that. But I'm reasonable enough to understand that the idea of that thing is one thing. The facts of, if I were to just quit my job and just try to make it doing those things, I have enough in savings that I could be covered for a little while. So it's not super bad right now. But there's also a part of me that goes like, 3 months from now, when we haven't gotten anywhere with anything, we're going to have to start looking for another job anyway. And when we have to do that, we'll probably be in a position where we're going to have to take anything that accepts us. Because like we don't have 4 months to pick and choose and wait and find the ideal job. Like if I'm out of work for half a year, I do not have the luxury of being picky about which one I take when somebody offers me a chance to work again. And that's exactly how you get into a situation where I'm working for a company that gradually got worse and worse to work for, to the point where like I kept adapting, saying like, oh, it's a little bit harder, but I'll just adapt until one day I look up and I go like, this is a miserable hellhole and I don't want to be here anymore. And it's like, that's the outcome of doing that kind of like pulling up and setting aside everything to start pursuing something. Because I don't imagine that within 4 to 6 months I'll be successful enough at any of my creative ventures to be covered, so that I don't ever have to go back to one of these crap jobs. I don't think that's ever going to be the scenario. That's a little pessimistic, but like some of the goal to do on Opportunity Forge was to look into ways that I could start using what I have in savings to grow my savings more, rather than use it to cover me escaping work for 6 months. So part of that goal was to look into the possibility of investments, like a Roth IRA or something like that, so that I don't have to always be doing this for the rest of my life. But some of the other projects that I was looking at playing around with would be things like This month is supposed to be compose an album of music by the end of the month. And if I'm able to post that up there and it only makes $20 a year, that's fine. Put that up there with the next month's project, which will be a photography book, which, if that one only makes $15 a year, now we're starting to talk about making $40 a year more than I'm making now. And doing those kinds of things over time is what eventually leads you to building I don't want to call it a customer base, but a community of people who will support your endeavors. Like, one doesn't just simply make a painting and sell that painting for $150,000. One makes paintings and sells them for unreasonably small amounts of money on a regular basis until you get kind of noticed by people who are interested in your artwork and seeing your art career grow. And then you get investors who invest in the growth of your body of work as time goes by. And eventually you start selling pieces for multiple $1,000s per painting. That's usually how the art community stuff goes. So there's a part of me is like, I want to see about setting up some of those things to start happening. Like, I could do some of those paintings. I looked into some of the recent interest a lot of people have had in non-fungible tokens for digital art. And some of that's interesting. I'd like to dabble in that. I'd like to explore it. Is that something I'm going to make a lot of money in? Probably not. I don't have an audience. I don't have a collecting base for anybody to be invested in collecting any of my works. So I don't imagine it's going to be something that's, economically viable as a source of income for me. But would I still take the chance to try some of it out? There's some cheapo ways to do it that are not as likely to be successful or have the reach. And then there are some ways that have the reach and have a higher chance of success, but have a bigger barrier to entry. So like there's one site out there that you can sell digital artworks on for cryptocurrency. And those sites, I think last time I checked, it would cost you about $200 to set up an account and list a piece of artwork on there. And so, like, you better make at least $300 from that painting. And what are the odds that I'm going to make $300 from a digital piece of artwork? Probably pretty small. So, like, without an audience, that's probably not likely to succeed. Now, could I play around a little bit and do some gimmicky stuff that would generate publicity and potentially get a sort of a viral hit? Maybe. But, like, do I want to invest $200 into a maybe? Like, I'm not in a position right now where that seems like the wisest choice. Like, it wouldn't hurt me. I could do it. And I could do it probably a couple times. I think really like the $200 to set it all up, that $200 cost would be to set it up. And I think it runs after that about $80 per work as it stands right now. I've heard some people say they've found times of day where if you do it at the right time of day in the right way, it only costs you like 40 to 60. And I was like, all right, so is that an adventure I want to go on? Like, if I do the $200 first and then I list 5 different pieces for, $60 a piece or $70 a piece. So let's split the difference. 5 times $70 a piece would be $350 plus the $200 to set it all up. You're talking about a $550 cost. I could do that, but there's other things I could do for that $550 with a better chance of netting me better results. Like I could set up a Teespring account with some like canvas prints of an artwork I make, and I would have a better chance of those selling for $70, where the cost to me would be less than $10. So like setting them up, I don't actually have to pay anything for those artworks to be listed up on Teespring. And if somebody buys one of those canvases, they take a percentage of that sale value. So if I list it for $37 and they take a cut of like $5 out of that, like I make a profit of $30 off of something like that. Whereas if I try to list a NFT token on an exchange, it's going to cost me, if I try to list 5, it's going to cost me $100 per, roughly, to do that. $100 per work at 5 works to list them there, with no indication of whether or not I will ever get any of that money back from actually selling them. Whereas if I list something up on Teespring and it doesn't sell, it doesn't cost me anything. And so by my thinking, that's the better deal. That's the first thing I should be pursuing. Those are the kinds of things I need to be looking at first. Now, looking at other processes and other adventures, like there are things that I want to explore and make videos about exploring, because there are definitely things out there. I've seen other people on YouTube making videos of how to become financially independent, or be an entrepreneur and be successful. And half of these things are like so clearly, like it's clear that 80% of the people who would try to do that process would not get anywhere. It feels so much like snake oil salesman shit. And some of it's like a drop shipping. You can make money doing drop shipping. Well, I'd love to do a series of videos where I try that out. And in my mind, the real question during that procedure is going to be, can I do better than breaking even? Because you can lose money doing that kind of stuff. You can break even. You might even make $13 a month from it if you do better than breaking even. But I don't foresee this being a full-time or even just a part-time income for anybody. One of the other things I'm curious about is being an Amazon reseller. Like, we have them that come into the store where I work and they buy hundreds of dollars worth of crap. They come in and buy, what is it? Probably like 50 of our newest pattern of tea towel or kitchen towel. So they buy like 50 to 100 of those things. And then they go and list them up on Amazon for like a $2 to $3 markup from what they buy it from us for. And they sell those things on Amazon and they make a little bit of money. Now the question is, like, how successful can you be at that? Well, you'd think like, okay, so you just buy things and you sell them on Amazon. Well, the question really should be like, what are you buying? How do you find out what's the right thing to buy? And if you don't sell it, do they charge you to keep it on your Amazon sale site for a period of time? There are a couple different ways that happens. As one of them is you keep the inventory in your own house, so you pay to store it. And then as it's ordered, you ship it out to fulfill the orders. All right, so that can be a little bit of a pain in the ass, especially if you have to do 2-day shipping to get it out somewhere. Or the other thing you can do is you can sign up to get a shelf at an Amazon fulfillment center, and you pay a monthly fee for that shelf. And if you don't empty that shelf, they charge you a storage fee for the items that are still on that shelf after a period of time. So you best make sure you sell out of everything you put on that shelf by a certain time period. Otherwise, you can lose money in that process. Now, I want to give those things a try, and you're going to need money to set them up, and you're going to need money in case they start to cost you money to run. At that point, like that's something that's going to cost me money to necessarily experiment with in at least a few cases. It'd be cool if they all broke even at best, or at worst. But I imagine one or two of these crazy ideas are going to prove to be a cost loss for me. Now, if I can spare the change to lose $50, $70 in the course of a couple months on some of these experiments, that's fine. That would be a worthwhile expense for me to spend my money on, to explore those opportunities and really, really see for myself and anybody who's interested in learning from what I do, what the actual events are, not somebody who's trying to sell you on their successful entrepreneurial abilities. And you see stuff like people on here who will say like, here are my top 5 side hustles that will get you from $0 to $1 million in 5 years. And it's like, go hang Christmas tree lights. That's good for about 2 months of the year. You go on Craigslist, you look up you post a listing that you'll hang somebody's Christmas tree lights on their house for them. That's one of the things you can do. Yeah, it's not good for the whole year. And how much money can you make doing that? So how many times a day do you have to go out to somebody's house, gas mileage, and equipment and resources to set that up, like a ladder, and haul that stuff around, and where are you driving to? And by the end of that, excursion, what's the net profit on that? And then you're going to have to report that as income to the IRS, so they take some of their taxes out of that stuff. And the question is, can you make, and there are people out there who are saying like they make $500 a day doing this. I'm like, $500 maybe if this was like something you did for 12 hours a day, get 5 different jobs in your area for that gig. You charge exorbitant amounts because you go to neighborhoods that are high finance industry areas where big people make big money, and they're willing to pay somebody $130 to go hang their Christmas tree lights. You're not going to get that around here. You're going to get $50 from somebody who may be willing to pay you $50 or $20 to $50 to hang their lights. So, like, is that a practical job opportunity? No. But there are people out there touting it as a way to make easy money. It's not. And, some of that stuff is not going to cost me a lot. But there's like odd job kind of things that I could test out and explain how it all works for those who are touting it as the way to make a good side hustle. And then there are things like flipping items, like going to thrift stores and yard sales and finding things and then selling them for more online. Just like, the thing they don't tell you is the sheer amount of butt work that's involved in doing that. Like, to go to 13 different yard sales on a Saturday afternoon to find 5 things that you then have to research their value, maybe clean up, set up, test, and then make the listings to sell them online, hold the listings, pay the listing fees on like eBay or whatever, and then sometimes you have to drive it out to the person who's purchasing it as a way to get them to purchase it. And then the profits you made from that purchase, like how many hours did you put into that process? Where if you went and got a $15 an hour job working at like Walmart, $15 an hour, if you put the same 8 hours it took you to get that item and sell it, 8 hours at $15 an hour, could you make more doing that? Probably. And I'd be curious to just give that a test run. So like there are definitely those types of things I'm interested in doing, and they're probably going to cost me more to do than I'll make from the process of trying to do them. And that's sort of the thing I'm trying to prove. I'm okay with that kind of loss. I'm not really as comfortable with dropping $550 for a couple of like 5 paintings that may not ever go anywhere. Like I'm not that's a big gamble. You know, losing $20 to $30 here or there over 5 months of trying out experimental ideas is one thing. 550 in a drop that you may never see anything back from, I really don't feel like it's worth it. Not right now. Now, I may reach a point where I'm doing well enough with some of my projects or something like that, where I feel like at a given time, I could take that risk. Like a one-time, like a 1 month thing where I've already made the paintings. All I have to do is make them into digital format, set up the account, do all the work to do that, list them up, and list them for something that's going to easily make the money back. So in a case like that, like in my mind, 5 paintings costing me $550 to list them, I had better make at least $1,200 back. Because like on top of the, meeting the costs. So like that's, it pays for the listing and making and all the parts of putting those arts out there. After that, no additional cost to me. Pay off those parts would be great to break even. But to really be worth looking into further, it had better make me at least a couple hundred per painting. And I'm still at the phase as an artist when I do some of my artworks where I'm not as comfortable asking $100 to $200 for a painting yet. I'm not at a point where I can really honestly say that seems reasonable. And maybe I'm underselling, because I know there's like definitely there are artists out there who are easily doing work that's not all that much better than I would do. At least in my perspective on what they're doing. I've seen people who do abstract works that are a bunch of random smears that I have done better work than, and they're selling their works for $1,500 a piece. I can't get past that sense of, when I produce a piece of work, the idea of saying like $120 seems a lot to ask for a thing that I painted. But there is that little hurdle to get past on that for me. And I acknowledge that I may be underselling, because one of the things, there are 2 different ways they tend to recommend that you look into how to price your artwork. One of those ways is per square inch. So basically you take the length and the height of the artwork that you're doing to get your square inches, and then you multiply that by your value as an artist. And so an artist who's been selling their artwork for a few years can easily say, like $6.25 per square inch, $6.25 per square inch is a reasonable rate to charge. And so if you do a 16 by 22 painting, and you multiply that by 625, you're asking $2,200 for a painting. And if that's the formula you use, that makes those prices for paintings seem logical. It makes sense. Now, the other way you do something like this to calculate how much to charge for a painting would be to say, how much did your materials cost? Double that cost. So your brushes, your paints, your canvases, and your finishing, your framing, all of those parts. You take those prices, you double those prices to get the cost of your materials paid for, and then paying for you to do the next one. And you just, that's part of the inclusion. And then you pay yourself an hourly rate. Now, I did, stumble across this a little while back, where one of the things that comes up is U.S. statistics listing the median hourly wage for visual artists in the category of when they're taking accounts for taxes for artists to pay. They tend to figure a visual artist is likely to be making annually about $53,000 a year. I don't know where the hell they're getting that figure, but whatever. And the hourly wage they use to calculate what a visual artist makes is $25.56 as of 2019. So $25.56 per hour for work from a visual artist. So if you run those calculations and you go like the cost of your materials, double that, then pay yourself $25, roughly $25 per hour for how long it took you to do the work. And that's the price you need to put on your painting. So if you do a painting that takes you about 6 hours times $25 is $150. And you figure you probably put $150 into the materials. So your total cost at that point is going to be $300 for your painting. And you'll notice here, I could be talking about the same painting we were talking about a minute ago when we calculated by the square inch. So $2,200, $300. Those are two very different numbers to come up with based off of the value of the same painting. So, like, I'd be more inclined to say from the start, doing the hourly wage calculation for an artwork would be something I'd be more comfortable doing than the by square inch. But that still feels kind of steep. $300 for one of my paintings sounds steep to me. But I could easily parse it out in my head that I can set the price on the original painting at that price. And I can then make prints like the canvases over on Teespring that people could purchase available for $20 or $30. And if I sell $30 a time, sell 10 of them, I'll have made the $300 that I could make from the original in just prints. So that that I can understand, I can appreciate, because that means nobody's paying more than $30 for my artwork. But at the same time, I'm making enough to make it a reasonable job at that point. So in the course of the month, if I do 3 paintings that take me that net me $300 each in print sales, that to me is a reasonable part-time job as an artist. Now you'll get to a point where like it starts to hit a question of whether or not financially you are an investment opportunity for individuals, because that's where you really start to get the paintings going for $12,000 to $15,000 each. You can get to $1,000 or $2,000 before you hit that point. I feel like there's a point where I can start to justify and explain and appreciate these ideas of make a piece, list it for $300 to $500, depending on how long it took you to do, and you do 3 of those in a month. Like we were talking about, like the $300 painting being something that's achieved with 6 hours of work. So if I can do 18 hours in a month of painting and achieve 3 paintings in that month, that either selling the originals for $300 a piece, or selling the prints for $30 a piece and selling 10 of each minimum, reaching that point is reasonable side income. But there's a point where more people are willing to buy your paintings and you're able to produce them. And I think that's when you start to bump your price up. But you might bump it up before that. Like I had a friend who said to me at one point, like, okay, let me ask you this. If you were to make a piece of craft or a piece of art, and it was a good piece of art that other people would be interested in, you could sell all of them that you produce, how many do you want to make in the course of that month? Like literally saying, do you want to make 15 of these things a day for 31 days? Hell no. There is, like, those wooden rings are neat. Do I want to make 15 a day every day for an entire month? You couldn't pay me enough to make me do that. All right, so we're going to start from that foundation. How many do you want to make in a month? I think I would be happy making 5 to 7 of those in a month. I could do that for a month. I could do it for 4 or 5 months. Eventually, I'd probably get to the point where I want to move on to something else. But could I make 5 of them a month for 5 months? Yes. All right. So how much are you going to charge per ring, wooden ring, so that you can make it so that you only have to make 5 in a month? Okay, that's one way of looking at it. And the other side of it he gave me was like, what you need to think about doing is pricing it so that no matter how many you make in a month, there are just a few more people willing to pay that price than there are rings for them to buy. So basically, if you only want to ever do 3 of those rings in a month, you price it so that there are only 4 or 5 people who are willing to pay the price that you put on those rings. And like, it makes total sense in my head. Like, I get it. That's very capitalist. I'm not a big capitalist in that sense. I'm not quite up there on that score. I find that one hard to do. Because I'm not making art just to be an exclusive object for the rich to own. I'm making art to say something, to communicate something, explore an idea, share it, and be meaningful to other people. And so, like, it's the difference between somebody having my one piece of artwork in their private collection and my putting a piece of my art in a museum where anybody can go in and see it. I want the latter, not the former. I I would much rather have the latter. And what that means is it's harder for me to imagine saying I will only make 7 of my wooden rings this year, and I will price each of them at $1,200 a piece, so that I make. I'm just chucking numbers out there, but $1,700 a piece times 7 of them. Yeah, that would be about $1,000 a month, just shy of $1,000 a month. That if that's what I want to do, if I only wanted to make 7 rings in a year, could I set that price? And if I got well enough known or did something virally important with one of my rings that they become a commodity that people want and will trade and collect and all that crap, could I do that? Yes. Do I want to do that? No, not at all. But if I make artworks that I can get prints made of, now that changes that. There's not a limit on who can own my artwork. There's not a exclusivity. Nobody can buy it and prevent anybody else from encountering it. It gets out there, and anybody who wants one can have one. I like that. And here's the trick to it. If I do prints of my artwork and they sell like that, then the original artwork is still something a collector can buy and own the original. And they can pay that exorbitant fee that they want to buy and own that thing. But it doesn't mean that somebody else can't experience my artwork too. And that is so much easier for me to look at and explore. And that's something I'm thinking more about, reaching into that environment to play around with. And it's something I've been considering about doing a series of videos about for the Opportunity Forge channel. It's part of one of those things I wanted to do with that channel. So it's on my mind of stepping out of this environment of working for somebody else. But as I sort of said at the beginning of this evening's discussion, I still think I would occasionally go pick up some part-time jobs. I'd probably do them at least 3 or 4 times a year for a few months, just because I need to get back in touch with that part. Like, I feel like if I don't step out, and maybe there are other venues I can explore, volunteering or being members of, like, I could definitely benefit from going back to the makerspace and interacting more with those people again, or going to group meetings like a book club or a social group or a board game play group like that. I need to have some of that just so that I'm checking in with the outside world. And it's partly because, given time to itself, my brain will keep me distracted with swirling thoughts. But it's also because I am completely familiar with the fact that, like, the stuff I do on this channel, like, you give me Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'll spit out a story concept of 3 anthropomorphic raven sisters who are detectives during the Victorian era. That's my brain will do that. And that's the creativity and the fun and the excitement and the play that my brain does. But if that's all I have access to, I'll be perfectly happy doing that. But I start to come across as the crazy lunatic because, like, I haven't checked in with the rest of society. And a good example of this is a couple of my former housemates I've dealt with in the past. I've lived with multiple people over the years, and I've had some absolute nut jobs. And almost without exception, the people who went completely frickin' bonkers were the people who didn't have anybody to check in with on a regular basis. They only had their own thought processes to check against. So, like, is somebody secretly slipping LSD into your food when you're not here so that when you get home and you taste it, it's going to actually cause you to have those hallucinations that you've been having? If all you have to check in with on that question is your own mind, but your mind is already supplying you with that crazy question to begin with, you need somebody who's outside of you to check in with. And I have this fear that if I'm stuck in my own head long enough, these crazy ideas, like the fictional story setting that I've been building for game development and story writing, if I'm alone long enough, will I start to believe I've cracked the code to the actual mystical origins of the universe? Will I go bonkers? I don't know. I don't think that's an experiment I want to run. Well, not right now anyway. So I kind of want to be able to check in with society every now and then. Have somebody tell me, your idea, that's an interesting thought. Maybe don't do that right now. Like I in the last week, I've talked about is it the last week or the last month? I think probably in the last month. I've had that idea of doing some artworks with blood or urine and those kinds of things. That's in my mind right now, I'm okay with this. I will probably do these things. I can think of a few people that if I told that I was doing this would want to check me into a mental ward. They'd want me to, you've gone crazy. Do I think it's fully crazy? No. Do I think it's taboo and pushing the boundaries of most people's abilities to accept and appreciate? Yes. And I know that's my brain being creative. I need at least a little bit of outside reference every now and then to check myself against. I need to be able to say, like, if I told my mom that this was a project I was going to work on, what is she going to say? Like, when I told her I was going to try to learn to do some fire breathing this year, she's like, are you crazy? I said, there are safe ways to do it. It's not a huge concern. And she says, like, you're going to do that in the house? I'm like, I'm not going to do it in the house. Do you think I'm stupid? She goes, well, you're going to do some fire breathing. And I think that's pretty stupid. Like, that check-in, yes, I'm still going to try to learn some fire breathing. But I'm also more aware that, I knew going into it that it's going to be something that's going to definitely raise some eyebrows and make some people nervous and uncomfortable. But I don't think it's so bad that somebody's going to want to stop me. I don't know that I will always be able to recognize how far my creative thinking has taken me without some kind of being able to look in on the outside. Somebody, my mom's not always going to be there. My sister won't ever understand half of what I'm doing. But I need to be able to check in and have some people say, like, wow, that's crazy and interesting and different, but you're not nuts. Like, this isn't something that we feel the need to intervene on. It's just like, wow, what a weird thing for you to do. Like, I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with if I start to have, like, weird impulses to get myself surgically altered to have, like, we've seen those people out there that have, I'm sure you've seen, like, something on TV about the people who go out there and surgically alter themselves to have horns So they have these things implanted into their skull and skin. Or like that's, they're not hurting anybody at any point with that. So I'm sort of okay with that. But at the same time, that's a choice you don't really take back. And I need to be able to say, like, my own creative brain can't be the only one checking my thought process. Because, before you know it, I'll be living in the woods carving totems to fake gods. I don't think I'm ever going to be that bad. I'm just nervous about whether or not I can check those balances on myself. Yeah, so that's just me rambling. Me being paranoid about how far I'll let myself go. But if you ever see signs of me behaving weirdly like that, do let me know. Yeah, so I do think I want to pursue some of the artistic stuff, and it's really rewarding sometimes for me to sit down and pull out a notebook and just brainstorm like what I could do, and then sit out and try to figure out like how could I make that happen. Like we were talking about doing the paintings and the prints, and trying to get to a point where I can make $1,000 a month from my artwork. Can I do that? Can I reach that point in the next year? I'd love to be able to say yes. I'd love to be able to say, I know I can definitely do that. And I kind of want to pursue trying to get down that path. Can I do that in a year or 5 years? How long does it take to do that? That's, I think, where I'm going to end it tonight, because there's more to talk about. We're an hour and 12 minutes into this, and we have more days to fill with more ramblings later on. So it is Thursday night now, right? Yeah, it's Thursday night. Well, it's probably Friday night now for you too, or Friday morning. Next one is Sunday, which is your birthday, right? I believe the next. Did you say March 7th was your birthday? Or have we already passed it? Did I screw that one up? I might have screwed that one up. Did we pass it? Well, anyway, any which way it is, happy birthday to you when your birthday arrives. Until then, take care and have a good night. Buenos noches. I'll be curious to see if Sunday the 7th. Yeah, that's being in a mood, I guess. We'll see how it goes. I'm not going to die, so whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. I should have superpowers by now then.